Seema.
Hi.
Welcome to my podcast. I've been looking forward to having you online for quite some time. Okay, sneakily very excited. And the reason I've been excited is because when I had met you at an industrial event some time ago, I was amazed at this amazing calmness you had when you were talking about your field. And every time I met you after that, there's never been like a moment of what on earth is going on with my life. You've always maintained this sense of calmness. And so I was thinking this month being stress awareness month, maybe I need some of you to rub some of that calmness off of me in today's podcast. So I know you. I would love for the audience to know you.
Thank you so much. It's a calm on top of all the turmoil that's under it. I just I think it's just been years of managing myself and working on self that has helped to be the person that I am, and I consciously make an effort to do that. I used to work for a large enterprise organization. I was heading sales for Europe and Africa for Sony Pictures Networks. And after 14 years, I decided to get into AI and changed my career, moved into that space, worked with the AI startup, understanding, relearning things. Because they say, right, change or change will change you. I love that quote. I read it from
Change,
somewhere. I thought,
say
change or
uh-huh.
change will change you.
Change or change will change you. Ooh, that's very nice. Profound.
Very interesting, right?
Yeah.
Profound, yeah. And that's what I thought, I kept changing myself, reinventing myself. And at every stage there was stress. It's not that there wasn't stress, but it's up to you how much you want that stress to impair you or use that stress to propel you to the next level.
Okay,
So
so
it's
back.
always good to be
Uh-huh.
in a sense of uh, instability, if for lack of a word. You were saying something.
Well, what I was going to ask you, you said, okay, stress, change or change will change you,
Yeah.
right? Let's go to that part. So you mentioned something. You just threw two things in there. You said, okay, I was in media, and then you went to AI. That's two different
Yes.
industries as well. Okay, but even before that, did you always work in the UK, or did you work somewhere else before you came to the UK?
Oh, I worked in India. I'm from India, so I worked in Mumbai.
Uh-huh.
I was in broadcast media at that stage too, and then I moved to UK to follow my family over here. Took a sabbatical, thought I was here for a couple of years. Just enjoyed myself. Never knew that I would stay here for 18 plus years now.
Wow.
Um, so it's been an interesting journey. So I got into media over here. Again, that was a change, right? Because you're learning about new audiences over here, new ways of working, uh,
Mhm.
resculpting yourself, and then starting on a new trajectory.
I find it interesting because you've said resculpting, redefining, constantly like you're reinventing yourself the whole time, right?
True, true.
There's this thing where we always struggle with this word. I struggle with every time people tell me speak about authenticity, and I go, okay, how can we just constantly speak about authenticity? And I always feel like it's like in this box. And here you
Yeah.
are saying, I reinvent myself, I resculpt myself, I redefine myself. It's all this re's in front of it. So when you came from India to here, you still went into broadcasting. Was that
Yes.
intentional, or was that by chance, or was that the easiest way in without redefining yourself?
I think it was the known devil, right? And also, I enjoyed being in broadcast media at that point. So I wanted to carry on in that space and learn more about how it works over here, what are the regulations, understand, connect with people over here. So I thought it would be a short journey. I was there for almost 14 years. And at every stage when I was getting an itch or I wanted to explore something new, I was lucky enough that I had some really good mentors and leaders who kept giving me new opportunities and new challenges. And exploring, learning, making mistakes, and learning from them. So I really had a good opportunity and a good learning ground for almost 14 years leading teams.
So get me to this balance, because here recently I read in an article about a lot of millennials are now kind of quitting. They're
Mm,
resigning because they want to go into this. They feel that life is too pressurizing in work, so
mm,
they don't
mm,
know how to balance it. So they just take
mm,
time off, and they rather have less than more.
mm,
You're sharing that you've taken on leadership, you've had good mentorship, but you're also
mm.
a mom. You're
Yes,
also a wife. How
yes,
did you navigate all of that without stressing?
yeah. Um, so it's a fine balance, right? When you're trying to balance all three roles, it's not easy. It puts a pressure on yourself. But at every point, if you have those expectations from yourself and you find happiness in where you are right now from where you have started, so it always helps rather than comparing yourself to someone else and going by false expectations of how
Mm.
the ideal mother is or how the ideal wife is or how the ideal leader is. You go with authenticity and go with what you are and keep improving yourself at every stage to what you want to be.
But Seema, that's not easier said than done. I'll
Mm,
tell you why. I'm thinking about our culture. I don't know if you had the same thing I had, but
mm,
this immense pressure of from cultural about being a woman, especially South
mm,
Asian, the South Asian roots of mine, I would call it, right?
mm, mm.
You're supposed to be the idyllic wife, and you behave, and you don't make too much noise. You make noise but not too much noise, and you stay in your lane. And often in our society we compare often to one another. I've seen it
Yeah.
happen tremendously. I don't know if you've had that. So how did you say, okay, be authentic, but
How did I navigate them? I think I've been lucky to be surrounded by very strong women in my life. So my mom is an amazing person. I mean, you would say that about your mother too, but she's my mother started her entrepreneurship journey when she retired as a school teacher. So she started at the age of 60.
oh
Um,
no way.
and I was super impressed with that because when everyone is ready to hang their boots and rest,
Mhm.
she didn't. She decided to give back to community, and she carried on doing things which gave her a lot of satisfaction, and she wanted to keep going. Similarly, my mother-in-law, she has been a working woman throughout life. Um, so they all understood, and I've seen them being fiercely independent, yet at the same time supporting their families and carrying and ensuring that their families are not neglected. And I think that's been a good foundation for me because I always look up to them. And also, when you have strong partners in your life
Yeah.
who understand that your identity is not just being a career woman. Your identity is not just being a mom. Your identity is not just being a wife. It is an amalgamation of multiple things in life. And that's what makes you vibrant, right? Otherwise, you are just following a path that has been dictated um, by generations or by people from the past.
Have you always remained that calm throughout all of that? I mean, did you never stop and go all those buckets at you? You were always this calm?
No, I wasn't. So when I started my career as a manager, when I first had to lead, I was very young, very juvenile, I would say, too young to handle teams. And I expected them to be as committed and to be a clone of me. So I said, if I can work these many hours, I would expect my team also understands the vision and the mission, and they would also work the same number of hours. Why are they not doing the same as I do? So I would uh, mentor them, coach them to be a clone of me. And it took some time for me to realize that each one has their own personality and each one has their expectation of what they want from that particular role or that organization. And
Um,
I think that was the
mm,
biggest learning for me when you understand where you are going in that organization, and the other one, what is it that you are expecting, what is your purpose from that. Once you realize that and you know that is the reality for each of your team members,
mhm.
and then you become a better manager or a better leader.
Which part was there ever a moment on that journey where it felt like the wake up call? You know, when you had that one moment where you had to really look at yourself and your leadership style. Was there ever a very defining moment in your career for that?
Oh, there were many moments. It's not just one small instance. There were many instances, and probably there was one which I still remember. One of my mentors, he said, when I was in the broadcast media, he said, "Listen, we are an entertainment business. It's not life and death. Things can wait on till a Monday. You don't need to work late hours on a Friday to turn things around." And I thought that's so poignant, right? I
Yeah.
mean, what are we trying to prove to anyone? Why are we killing ourselves? At the end of the day, what is the goal? What is the purpose of that particular, what are we trying to achieve from that? And that helped me reflect on a lot of things. And then I think it made me a better person too. And probably the next set of team members who were working with me probably saw a reformed me. I really empathize with the first batch of the teams who really had to struggle with the aggressive Seema at that point.
Do you think age has anything to do with the way you evolved in your leadership?
I think more than age, I would say experience. It's
Okay.
it's experience of working with different people, being part of different organizations, mentoring different people, and um, mentoring organizations too. I think that has made me a better person. I could have remained in the same place for years and retired out of that, and probably I would have come out totally disillusioned,
Hmm.
having lost my purpose, not understanding why I'm doing something, why am I not taking risk? Is it because I'm comfortable in that little comfort zone? I could have, but interacting with women in the in different organizations in the industry, talking to them, mentoring young women to take up leadership roles, and going beyond the operational level, breaking those glass ceilings, going out to get what is available out there. Um, that has helped me become a better person too. I
Did
think
that?
more than what my mentee gained, I think as a mentor, I
Yeah.
too gained quite a lot from that.
They do say mentor mentees. You learn from one another, and I always think about multi-generational communication now. You know, where
Mm, mm,
different you learn from different generations as well.
absolutely.
And that takes me to this one thing. You went from media, you jumped into AI. Did
Yes.
you expect that? I mean, how did that come about? Because that's
It was
different.
completely serendipitous. So I was when I was the region sales head for Europe and Africa for Sony Pictures Networks, as I mentioned earlier, I was invited to give keynotes in industry forums. And I was invited to speak about AI and its impact on media, on sales, on broadcast. Um, and on business generally. And that just intrigued me about AI. I started enjoying that, researching about it. And so I went and did a course in AI and its impact on business strategy from MIT. I wanted to be really sure whether I really like it or is it just the new shiny thing that's out there. I loved it. So I decided that it was time for me, and the conditions were right for me to make that transition into the AI space,
Mhm.
in the sales space itself, because that's where my strength was. And then I moved into building partnerships and alliances because I love interacting with people. And I loved that role. It just kept moving on its own. Opportunities kept coming, and I kept grabbing them.
In the AI space, there is a lot of, well, there is a lot of talk about how it is very male dominated at the moment,
Mm,
right?
mm,
So, and that it does influence the impact of AI, how it is generating data at the moment.
mm.
How do you, in mentoring the women, are you mentoring women in that space, or how? And is there indeed such a small gap, or is that just outside looks of it, or are women catching on and still staying in that industry to be leaders eventually as well? Like how, like you said, you love taking leadership approach, but to not go against that grain of, you know, not going ahead. A lot of millennials burning out and not going ahead with their careers. How do you inspire women in that sense, even in such a male dominated space? What would you do to tell them to stay encouraged without burning out? Because you also do mindfulness in that aspect.
Yeah, yeah. I think to answer your first part, generally in tech organizations, women are the skew of women versus men is far it's far low in terms of the percentage of women working in tech organizations. And in fact, it has even dropped further post COVID than it was pre COVID. So that's quite interesting. And there has to be a conscious effort to
Mm-hmm.
support women, and you need champions to give them. So it's all about equity rather than equality. It's
Yeah.
not about giving equal opportunity, but actually scaffolding, provide that scaffolding network for women to perform better, because you need to have that you need to have that diversity of opinions and views. And it's not just women, and it's not just gender, I mean, across various avenues, because else you'll end up with an AI product that is full of bias, right? You need
Yeah.
to have those multiple views going in when you're building an AI product. And definitely, from a women mentoring point of view, I mentor women who are looking at moving from different careers into technology,
Yeah.
and whether it's AI, Gen AI, or any other technology speaks, because a lot of women hold back, including me, where I wasn't very sure. I don't have a technology background. I'm not
Yeah.
an engineer. I'm not a data scientist. But to make that transition from and bring my skill set into that space, it was not difficult.
I
It's like
wouldn't have thought.
learning anything new.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought so. I would have actually thought maybe assuming a lot here, but being in the media, I and sales, your communication skills has to be very flexible and adaptable depending on the audience. So that takes, isn't that such a transferable skills into making sure that the data that goes into AI and builds the AI requires that also, because maybe more women, or more female gender start searching for words, and the more I know it goes into AI, then it gets stronger and stronger. So I can imagine that line of happening. But then how do you keep women in that space? How do you keep women staying and growing their leadership in that space?
Absolutely fabulous question, because you find a lot of women in the operational level, coding and not being able to go beyond that into the leadership role. And that's where we need the male champions, the heads of the various teams, to consciously mentor and support these women to grow ahead, upwards. There are few organizations that there are few award ceremonies that are there, like Tech Women 100, Women in Tech. It's always good to be a part of those groups, because there you have similar women who have overcome these challenges, ready to help and extend that hand to you to take you along with them, right? Because
Yeah.
as you grow up in the leadership ladder, you need to pull the other women along with you to take that step ahead. And that's a space I like to be. I would love to mentor other women and not have to go through the struggle that I went through. Even in the media organization, I was probably one of the few female sales heads in the area, in the network that I was there, and I had to shout twice as loud to be heard.
Then wasn't that
But
exhausting?
if but then if I don't create an example, why would another woman come into that role?
There's
Right?
the
You need
argument.
to.
Yeah, but there's the other side of that coin, which you hear a lot also, is that when women, as women go into the next steps, they don't have the time or the will to pull other women up. Is that so? Still?
I I wouldn't think so. I think women today are far more open-minded to support other women to come along with them and
Mhm.
take them to the in that journey, and to pass the knowledge that they have had, how to break those ceilings and help the other women to break those glass ceilings, too. And I guess somewhere the leadership style has changed, right? From previous time where you would look up to a leader and you would just follow instructions that were there without knowing for what it was. You'll blindly
Mhm.
follow. This is what it is. This is how we do it. Today we question, why are we doing that? What is the purpose of that? What is the larger purpose? Is it just filling the numbers for the time being, or is there something beyond that? And does it fit with my values and my beliefs?
Now, is
Right?
that your leadership or is that leadership of in general? What would you think?
I think I think a lot of leadership styles have changed over time,
Yeah.
because, like you mentioned, you're having the silent resignation happening. People are quietly quitting, right? They're not spending time to argue, and if there is a conflict within the organization, they don't want to invest their energy into that. They have far more better things to do in life, and they move on from that. But if you want to have intelligent, people who are enterprising, who can help the organization grow, you have to be the servant leader there. You have to give them the opportunity to grow and come up with new ideas.
Okay, so give me the
I
calmness.
saw a smile on your
Give
face.
me the yeah, because I'm like, oh, she's talking about conflict here. My favorite subject. A lot of people, indeed, I find they freeze or they hold back when, especially in today's environment where everyone is trying so hard their best to be polite, that they
Mm,
avoid conflict in every means possible.
mm.
How do we break that part? How, with that sense of that calmness of yours? My smile is because there comes the Seema calmness that kicks in. How can we craft that calmness? What would you suggest?
Yeah, I think the biggest elephant in the room is avoidance of conflict, right? Avoiding confrontation. Um, and just to give some stats, there was a study that's been done where they say almost 28 billion pounds are lost in the UK PLC because of conflict,
That's a
which is
month.
almost, £1,000 per employee, per working person. And that's a huge amount, right?
That is huge.
Yeah. And and just why does conflict arise? Like when people join an
Mhm.
organization, there's agreement over there. They want to do things, they want to create things, and they want to uh, enjoy the time that they are there, right?
Yeah.
And they want to be with people that they love, or they, because they're spending a large part of their time in that environment, they want to be with people with whom they can connect with. But then when ideas start coming, and not all conflict is bad. Some conflicts, when you have conflict, new ideas spark and you have new innovations that take
Mhm.
place. When there is an element of malice that creeps into this, that's when conflict arises. And I think the best way, and usually these things happen when communication is subpar. You're not able to have that open conversation, when resources are sparse, and then there's a fight for those resources. And also your beliefs, if there are conflicts between
I
your
was going to
beliefs and
say,
your values.
yeah, I was going to say because I found that when I can see where the cost of it being so high. I mean, that is a really
Mm,
high number.
mm,
But I can also see it because I have seen in, especially in the tech industry, it's a lot based, a lot of people I've noticed from Asia that are taking on these jobs in the West.
mm,
So when
mm,
I come speak to them and I'm like, okay, let's talk about your communications, one of the things they're so afraid of is their sense of security.
mm,
So they actually hold back from opening up because of the fear of the cost of security. So I
mm,
know you're saying
mm,
there's lack of resources, but I'm like, what could be lacking when we have so much knowledge out there that even today, when I see this, I'm like, oh, okay, hold on. Why is
mm,
that still happening?
mm.
What are your thoughts on it?
I think gone are the days when you could sit in one organization, join an organization as your first job, and be there till you retire.
Yeah.
You can't. I mean, it's no longer there anymore. So it is very important for you to decide what um, is mental peace and excitement of being in a workplace
Mhm.
important, or is it just I just want to be secure, be in this chair? That is the value that you have to ask yourself
Yes.
these questions, right? Nothing is permanent today. We can see, I mean, technology itself gets redundant within a year. Unless you're updating yourself, unless you are learning about it, you will be obsolete. You may be the Goliath today, and tomorrow you're nobody, right? You've seen so many organizations shut shop that way. So if you are going in with the mindset of, I'm going to avoid confrontation, that is one of the techniques where you're saying that you win. It's that in that win lose matrix. It is you win, I'm ready to lose always.
Hmm.
What will eventually happen? You'll burn out,
Yeah.
right? And at one point, because you've lost interest in that, you have lost interest in your work, eventually you'll be made redundant or you will be pushed out.
Yeah.
Okay, so the choice is up to you whether you stand up to it, or if you believe that it is unfair, it is important to speak and have that conversation, right? Because everyone is looking at a particular disagreement with their own lens of values and beliefs, right? They are not looking at it from the other person's lens. Hence, if you don't speak together and you don't evaluate and collaborate on that, you will never rediscover that agreement you had initially, right?
I I
And
see
here,
that.
sorry.
I see that, but where I'm always playing devil's advocate because you're always looking
Mm,
for the, okay, I get that because something I would counter with. I agree with you 100%. And then you'd hear, yeah, but when I go and speak to somebody, that person doesn't understand. They'll say,
mm,
I've done all this. I don't understand.
mm,
What then?
mm, mm.
What then? And I'm just like, okay,
So,
what then?
so there are some interesting tools. I've done a workshop in a couple of industry forums talking about rediscovering agreement, and
Yeah.
there are a few tools that you can use to put someone in the other person's shoes. Ask what does it mean? What does that conflict mean to me? What is my intention out of this particular? What do I want to achieve from that? And therefore, what can I do to make that happen? So asking, taking ownership of that particular situation, finding out how can you make it better rather than putting the blame on someone else or pointing the finger at someone else. How this is a situation where it's affecting me. I need to make this better for myself. Okay. How do I make that better? What is it? What are the solutions? What are the steps I need to take? There's a very nice quote which I had read. This, I think this was Abraham Lincoln who said, I don't like that man. I need to know him better. And I thought that's amazing, right? I don't like you, but which means I need to know you better. And that's putting yourself in that person's shoes to understand what is the crux of the situation. What is it that I'm not aware of? And how can I make that engagement better?
I was a little more brutal. I think about the Godfather, be close to your enemy, close to your enemy more than your friends. I wasn't as poetic about Abraham Lincoln.
Oh,
But it is. I do like how you phrased it very much. It's about getting to accountability. It's about being able to
mm,
own how you feel in its truthfulness,
mm,
completeness. And you remind me of something. And you and I spoke about this before. And I'm like, okay, curious about this. I feel purpose before, I think purpose, I feel purpose generates long-term contentment over happiness. So
mm,
in workspaces, there was a point that everybody says, be happy. And then I used to be like, I'm not sure about happiness, but if I have a
mm,
purpose, I feel more driven. So happy
mm.
driven or purpose driven? What are your views?
When do you feel happy? When your expectations are met, correct?
Okay.
You're happy when whatever expectations you've set, they are met, you feel happy. Now,
Hmm.
if you have very high expectations that I will be happy only if I get A, B, C, D, E,
Hmm.
but if you look back on yourself, where you were to where you've grown to today, it brings a sense of contentment to yourself, right?
Is there a
You
difference?
were,
But is there a difference between contentment or happiness? Sorry, I wanted to ask you that one. Is there a difference?
yeah, there is, because happiness is, if you look outside for happiness, if you look outside, then you will never be happy
Mhm.
because your happiness is dependent on that person. It's dependent on you achieving that, or if that person or that thing changes, then it affects your happiness. But you look within yourself. You look within yourself and look at how you are as a person. Be mindful of everything that you have been experiencing. It may not be always positive. There could be negative things that are thrown at you, but that's a learning. That's an experience, and you have overcome that. Look at all the instances in the past that you've overcome, where you thought that, how did I even overcome that? I mean, I should have been a wreck by now, but I did that, right?
Yeah.
And that gives you a sense of contentment. So being there, being mindful, looking within, finding that bliss within,
Hmm.
I think that is happiness. And that bliss within comes when you understand your purpose.
Yeah.
What is the purpose for which you're doing the activity? What, I mean, it sounds very philosophical, but it's very simple, right? I'm working because, why am I working with this organization as against another one? Because I identify with the vision of this place, or what is their purpose? What are they trying to achieve? And it fits my purpose with my current values and beliefs. Over time, it may not. Your values may change, your beliefs may change, you become a different person over time. That's fine. But then it's time for you to move on to the next project.
You remind me of this because I used to read books from these Buddhist monks, and they said, if you hate something, that's great. you know. um and there would be, it's almost like they said, you want to search for your happiness, look at what you hate.
Yeah.
And I think there's something to be said about it. So you look at it and you feel like your hate is amplified twice as much, because now you're looking at it. And then it goes to a point where when you look at it or you're being with it, at a certain point you begin to love it, and it goes to the
Mm,
opposite extreme. And
mm,
then at a certain point you lose the love for it, and then you come to respect it. And I always
mm,
think about it in that sense, that you, they're states of mind. So hating a
mm.
state, loving state is like that happiness state. But then as you're speaking, it's going to that, here's the contentment, it's right
Yeah,
here. You learn to respect it, you let it go, and now it is service. It becomes of service what you've conquered.
absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with that. It's not about what can you do for yourself, but what can you do for others. So
Yeah.
as a leader, you want to be able to help others achieve their purpose and their goals in life, right? It's more like a servant leadership where you work to support others, because in doing that, you're achieving your goals too.
But in order to get that, from what I understand now, in order to become into that sense of service leadership, you have to have conquered those inner things within yourself too. Because then it becomes of service, right? You're not holding on to it, or your expectations are lower, or almost to like, not, it's not a personal expectation, it becomes an expectation for the benefit of others. Does that make
Ab-
sense?
Absolutely. And you don't wait till you reach that level, right? You are a constantly evolving project. You're
Okay,
a
I like that.
constantly learning project too, right?
Yeah.
But if you believe that with your knowledge and experience, you can help someone who's struggling, or who has or you have had a similar experience before, but you've come out of it, you can share your learning with that person and provide the path for that person to progress. I think you evolve in that. You learn and you become a much better leader, seeing someone succeed and perform well.
All right. So we're heading towards the end. I want to ask you, what's next now for you?
Um, so two things. One is I definitely want to keep learning more about AI and Gen AI, what's happening in that space, understand whatever I can with my limited capability, and how it can impact a business strategy, build those partnerships, get organizations to work together using their strengths, leveraging that. That's one spectrum. And the other side is about self development, well being, health, coaching. I enjoy that. So I think that gives me the balance. And helps me manage the stress that you had initially mentioned about,
Yeah.
right? Where you don't allow the stress to affect you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that calmness. The Seema, I call it now the Seema calmness, by the way. I'm like, I need Seema calmness. Just need Seema calmness. And I hope for a third thing. I know this year you had gone up as for an award in London, in tech, as woman in tech. And I'm really hoping you're gonna get that again this year. So my fingers are crossed. But
Oh, thank you.
Seema, thank you for coming on today and giving your time. It has been, yeah, it's always a pleasure to speak to you and connect with you.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure to be there and connect with you, Kirti. I've enjoyed working with you and speaking to you. I would love to carry on that.
Oh no, we're gonna have part two. I've told my guests, please come back again, because you have such a wealth of knowledge, and I just think, oh, 45 minutes is not enough, but I don't want the audience to be like, more. I only have 45 minutes. So thank
Yeah,
you, Seema.
my pleasure. Thank you.